Hi subscribers, welcome back to the channel. My name's Dominic James Murray, CEO and founder here at Cameron James. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about cash equivalent transfer values and on your pension for divorce. So to start off with, what is a cash equivalent transfer value? So a CETV or cash equivalent transfer value is exactly what it says. It is a cash equivalent transfer value which is offered to you from your final salary or defined benefit pension scheme. It's very important to note you do not get CETVs for defined contributions, SIPs or anything like that. This is only in relation to defined benefit or final salary pension assets where there are safeguarded benefits inside the scheme. So a CETV is effectively used when you're going through a divorce in order to look at your assets. So it's very important to note pension assets, whether they're yours, whether you accrued them during your relationship with your partner, whether you accrued them before your relationship with your partner, they form part of your assets and they must be disclosed. It would be a little bit like having a second property and just failing to mention it on your documents with your lawyer or your solicitors when you're going through divorce. This is not a good idea. I know many clients very often say to me, Dominic, it's ridiculous. I was working for 10 years before I even met my partner. I built up this pension pot. Why is it form part of my estate when we're getting divorced? If someone had a prenuptial agreement, possibly it might not form part of the divorce settlement. Otherwise, it has to be disclosed like all other assets. Obviously, I'm not here to get into whether that's correct or whether that's not correct. That's the way it is, and that's how it is in the UK, for example. So the cash equivalent transfer value can then be used to say, right, this is the current value of the person's pension pot, and typically speaking, it might be the male who has a cash equivalent transfer value, and possibly the partner was working at home looking after the kids and looking after the family, etc. This type of model is obviously becoming less common now as many parents both work, but this is kind of a typical scenario we normally see from our clients of 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago who got married and have accumulated CETVs back in the 80s, 90s or noughties. So effectively the CETV will allow the solicitors to say, okay, your pension pot is worth $500,000, your property is worth $1 million, and you have $500,000 other assets. That pension CETV can then be used to try to work out how can assets be fairly split amongst yourself and your partner that you're divorcing with. It's important to note that a CETV cannot be used in a separation process and only in a divorce process. So there's a couple of interesting things that can be used in terms of a CETV. And I'm just going to use some of my notes that I made earlier today in terms of the topic. So you can have a pension sharing order, which is effectively where you decide between yourself and your partner through your solicitors how you wish to separate the assets and how the pension sharing order will work. It's really important to have this clear and to make sure that it's fair for everyone involved so that it can be an easy breakup on as amicable as possible. Another option that you have is offsetting. So for example, if you say the CETV is worth $500,000 and the house is worth $1 million and you have $500,000 other assets, maybe one partner might say, okay, well, I will take the $500,000 CETV, possibly the person who already owned the pension in the first place. I will take the other $500,000 in liquid assets and you get to keep the family home, which is $1 million. So I get $1 million, you get $1 million. We don't need to break the CETV down. Let's just keep it. I keep my pension and manage it. You keep the family home, whichever way around it is. So that's something which can be used. It's called offsetting in the industry. So one of the questions we get as well is, do we need a pension actuary report, which is basically understands in more detail about the CETV. This will come down upon the independent situation, the information you need, and also the age you are at with your CETV, because you can also, as a pension sharing option, there's many different things that can happen. You can effectively have the CETV broken down between the two of you, possibly with inside the same pension scheme. If you're normally over a certain age and you're able to access the funds, you might be able to have the pension broken down. So say it was $500,000, your partner could have $250K inside the same scheme, which we ring fenced in their own individual name. You could keep your 250 that you already have, or 250 would have gone out into the other one inside the same pension scheme if it's permitted by your pension scheme. You also have the option, your partner may well say, well, actually, I don't want to be inside the same scheme. I would like to take my 250,000 and I would like to transfer it out somewhere else. You could then keep your 250,000 inside the normal scheme. They could transfer those out into a SIP or any other type of solution that would accept a transfer, a defined benefit asset. So there's many different options, and it really comes down to your own individual situation. We're very familiar with doing these type of pension divorce CETVs here at Cameron James. So if you want to understand more, whether you're the person who is going to be giving up part of your pension as a pension sharing order, whether you're the person who's going to be receiving pension as a pension sharing order, we've actually even had instances where we've worked both parties, and it's been very amicable, and maybe one of them has done research, thought that we're good, and actually introduced a partner to us to say, why don't you just do both of them at the same time? Maybe we could even try and get a bit of a slight discount. So if you want to find out more information, go to the description section below where you can book in for a free initial consultation to learn more about our services on a non-committal basis. You'll also receive a full due diligence email from ourselves. You have the time and energy to sit with a financial advisor and understand how we work before deciding if you wish to move ahead with Cameron James. So the key points to take away from this video are you always need to share your pension assets. Well, you always need to disclose pension assets, so I should say. Whether or not you need to share them will come down to a decision, typically of the courts or your solicitors or whatever agreement you make with your partner in terms of how you're going to be splitting the assets between you. So that's the main thing to take away from this. Always disclose. It doesn't always necessarily have to be shared. If it was before your marriage and you had a prenuptial agreement, or possibly you've come to an arrangement with your partner, you might not necessarily need to share it, but if you do need to share it, there's lots of different options that you could do, either offsetting or having a pension sharing order in place. You can keep the pension inside the same scheme, you could move it somewhere else. There's many options. It's not an ideal thing to go through having a divorce, but if you can make sure it's as amicable as possible and as fair as possible, get it done and get the paperwork finished so you can move on with your life. Guys, I hope you found today's video useful. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. And as always, please hit the big red subscribe button below to see weekly videos from myself here at Cameron James on all pension matters. Thank you.